Hello, it is I, Marc, back with another episode of the Elemental Podcast. Number 3 we're up to now. We've done 2 episodes on finding peace amongst the chaos, which is my life. And in those episodes, I went through 10 things that are my primary focus on finding peace amongst the chaos. So if you haven't had a listen to that, by all means, go back and check it out. But today, we're going to go on a bit of an adventure and talk about the things that I value, what makes me who I am. And we'll delve into some spiritual, spiritual and astrological and hippie hoo-ha stuff that I've been reading, researching, somewhat falling in love with, and they are things that I feel really connected to, and give me a lot of drive, a lot of purpose. A reason for showing up, something that is greater than myself, because the truth in it all is that I've spent a lot of my time in my own head thinking about why I'm here and why any of us are here. And, it's really easy to say that, we're all just victims of circumstance, if victim is the word, but maybe we are just evolution upon evolution. But we're right here now, and we are conscious, and I believe in things that give us purpose. And it might sound a little bit far-fetched here and there, but, I guess, approach this with an open mind. Approach it with the understanding that this is an exploration for me. And where I sit with this right now may be different in 10 years' time. Maybe in 10 years' time we'll have been visited by aliens. Maybe the original inhabitants of this earth will return. Maybe we won't be here anymore, any of us. Who knows? That was a bit dark, sorry about that. But yes, my purpose today is to share what I've been working through and take you on a bit of a journey in that space. But first, I would like to share why I've been a little bit delayed in getting episode number 3 out, because it's been a bit of a hectic one. My oldest daughter ended up in hospital. It's been quite chaotic. So, when we talk about finding peace amongst the chaos, it's taken me a while to get back to a place of peace. The last few weeks in particular have been challenging is one word. they took me to a space where I was thinking, here we go again. But there was actually a point of difference this time. You know, I spoke previously about going through cycles, and those cycles in particular are with my non-verbal daughter, who has trouble sharing clearly what may be wrong with her. And it's a bit of a guessing game sometimes, and sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint what exactly is going on with her, and we end up in hospital getting scans and tests and all this kind of stuff because she doesn't like people putting anything near her head. Like, for me, it's even a challenge just to cut her fingernails. So if you've got strangers coming at her with things to put on the end of your finger, or things to put on your head, or any monitoring kind of piece of equipment, it's just complete chaos, meltdowns, avoidance, etc. So hence why we end up in hospital with some sedation to get to the bottom of what's going on. And I wish there was an easier way. I really do. But at least, we can move forward once we find out what has been happening. So, yeah. We're back now. The only difference this time in this part of the cycle was that I felt that it was a piece of the cycle. This is something that I've come more and more capable of understanding and observing and preparing for. And this time around, I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. It was hard still, very hard to go through, as it always is. But I beat going into an anxious and depressive state. It was close. It was very close. But I went through a bit of a low mood. The anxiety got a little bit high. I felt some anger about the whole situation. Never physical. My anger is generally... I have an extremely long fuse before I need to go next level. I like to talk about things, and when I am upset about something, probably the most that I would the most extreme I would behave is to maybe be a bit snappy when my words aren't getting through. But I also have a way of directing it inward to deal with at the right time. So in this case, I waited for the right time, which was me driving on my own last night, and I got out all of my grievances in a voice message to myself. And maybe I will never ever listen to that voice message again, but it is a process that I follow to get what I'm feeling inside out and hand it over to somebody else, which is essentially nobody. But that process also helps me think through things and find peace. So, yeah, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent again, which If you haven't noticed already, I do that sometimes. So, that has been my last few weeks. And right now, today, at this very moment, I'm sitting at my desk. I have my journal in front of me. And I'm not going to read from anything specific. I am just going to rattle off the bits and pieces and maybe look up some references when needed. So, with that being said, let's kick it off. So, my journey to get to where I am right now in terms of finding a reason for being and for being here on this earth as an individual human being. So it starts with the purpose. I started reading, in fact, I'll go back further. It was probably a big shift happened maybe 5 years ago, where I decided that I don't want to be on anxiety medication anymore, and I had to start finding ways that I could control, is maybe one way of explaining it. Control or be aware of the moments when I felt heightened, and I went down a path of seeking meditation, and I found something that worked for me, and it was a very, I guess, I don't know, call it a commercial starting point, but it was a Netflix series from what are they called again? I've forgotten. Give me a moment. That's right, from Headspace. Headspace is, I think, quite a large group now. They are from around the world, and this particular Netflix series, I think I've tried the app before, and I went to the series on Netflix to I guess use something that was a little bit more commercial and user friendly, and to be honest, I wouldn't even call it commercial. It was 10 episodes, I think, 8 or 10 episodes. And it started with talking about the background of Andy, who I believe is the speaker. It takes you through the guided meditation. Talking about his path to get to where he is, and then talked a little bit about how meditation works, and then going through roughly a 10-minute guided meditation. And I had the settings perfect, and it didn't work properly the first time. I felt a little bit of it, but it took practice and going back time and time again to get my mind in the right space through the meditation process for it to start being really impactful for me. So meditation was my starting point, and it helped me delve into other areas that surrounded meditation. So I kept going with that. I went through all the different types of meditation that they had there, and I started to feel quite inspired. I started to feel in control. I could manage my own headspace. But there was still a lot of work to do. And then I started to read a little bit more. So, meditation can be, just mind-based. But for me, I find that it pairs really well with breath work. And so I started to look into that a little bit further. And I found a fantastic book called Breathe or Breath. I can't remember what it's called. It's by James Nestor, that went through his journey of understanding the evolution of breathing, which might sound a bit strange, but if I can tell you one thing right now, it is a very big thing, a very big difference to breathe consistently through your nose than it is to breathe in through your mouth. And there's a whole other journey that we can go on to talk about those things, and it will most likely be for another time, but I am happy to talk more about those if you are interested. In short, the way that we breathe can very quickly and effectively and positively change our nervous system, and as does meditation. So the two together, combined at once, bring me, this is how it is for me, to a very calm, considered state. And it's now a practice that I endeavour to do daily. I'm kind to myself when I can't do it, but I try to do it every single day because it really brings me peace. So those two things were where I started, and then the other thing that I started looking into were around personal healing. And again, there was some books that helped me along the way. A particular author that I got onto was and still is Brené Brown, who talks a lot about shame and it's different for different people, but shame helps you deal with shame. And shame can be, for me, that I constantly felt that I was not good enough. Not good enough as a parent, not good enough as a human, not good enough as a partner, and helped me dig deep into why it was that I felt that way. So, again, another journey that I went on there. From there, it took me elsewhere into a spiritual side of things. And when I say spiritual, I don't necessarily mean that it was like a come to Jesus moment, like it's not about that. This is where I started learning about, I guess, the universe, and how I believe we are all interconnected somehow, and that with that we all have a purpose. So there's a wide range of books YouTube videos, audiobooks, so many things that I could rattle off now that started me. If you're interested in what those things are, I can certainly talk more about them, or pop some questions in the comments where they're available. Again, or you can reach out to me directly via email or on my socials to ask these questions. Yes, but I think a lot of it was directed to me, or not directed to me, I think my interactions with people in those first few years, being single, trying out dating, meeting new people with different mindsets, different ideas, asking questions, being curious. This helped me a lot. It made me realize that, there's a lot more to uncover. I spent time in singles groups on social medias, going to events, and just learning about other people's journeys. And that alone was inspiring. It was about, trying out a few relationships here and there, realizing, my shadows and the things that I needed to work on, and then finding the resources to deal with those things that I needed to work on. A book that I was recommended in the early days was one that I've read quite a few times now, and it's not a long book, it's quite a short book, and it takes you on a journey of discovery and learning about what it is to find your purpose in life. And that book is called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I don't know if I said that right, but it's a brilliant book that I've read probably, including audiobooks, probably at least 5 times in the last 5 years, right? And each time I take something new away from it, because it's a journey of, as I said, discovery and personal challenges, and being guided, and ultimately listening to your own intuition and doing what feels right. And I pretty much took that as a sign to do the same. So from there, I continued. I went down a path of looking deeper into astrology. I met more people that gave me more direction and ideas. I found an app that I've gone back to time and time again that just I feel really connected to it. It doesn't do predictive astrology. It looks at the way the universe sat when I was born and how, I guess, like planets and stars and the moon, the sun, how those things all impact each other. And the reason I feel so connected to that is we know the push and the pull that the moon gives us. It's, one of the reasons that I do feel so connected to the moon, and you may have heard me call myself Moon Boy from time to time. I do love the moon. I love looking at the moon. I love the cycles of the moon. But I also know the impact that it has on this earth. And when I see and feel the moon, it gives me, inspiration. And to look further than that, if the moon can have that much kind of impact upon this earth that we live on, when we talk about the tides, how water flows, the fact that there's enormous amounts of water in our own bodies, we're connected. And it's my belief. I love to believe that we're all connected in some way. Water is life. Without it, we can't survive. And if the moon can have that kind of impact on us, what kind of impact can the rest of the universe have upon us? So I choose to believe. I choose to believe that the universe plays a big role in how things play out. So when I talk about the universe, I mean everything. I feel that everything is connected in one way or another. It's one of the reasons I choose to be vegan. And yes, okay, sure. The plants, they have feelings too. I'm not going to go down that path, but, I like to do as little damage to this earth as possible. That's all I will say on that matter at this stage. So, going back to the universe, my sign as my sun sign is Capricorn. And for many years I looked at that and said, okay, yeah, maybe I have some Capricorn traits, but it didn't make sense because I didn't always put money, finance, leadership, winning at all costs. Like I didn't always put that as a priority in my life. There were times when, yes, I wanted to lead, that I wanted to make big bucks, but I don't know, I think over time we become someone else or something else. So if I look at, my two other major signs, which is the Taurus moon and my Scorpio ascending, rising, there's two different types of beings right there. Scorpio, Taurus is quite close to being, kind of grounded as well as Capricorn, but I would say it's more grounded than Capricorn. And in saying that, that element, really brings me back to earth. It takes me to nature. It makes me put my feet in the dirt, in the stream, and sit there and ponder my thoughts. That's where I feel my best. And with Scorpio, this is, they say your ascendant rising sign is who you're meant to be and who you're supposed to work towards being. And if we talk about my Scorpio elements, it's being deep and intense and passionate about things, about life and personal matters. It's about feeling and having desires and striving to get those things, I think the deep and intense part is huge for me as a Scorpio rising. And yeah. So yeah, I think, what I'd love to touch on is just a bit of a recap of that so far, because it might be a little bit wishy-washy. So for me, my beliefs revolve around the universe and how it impacts my life. How it helps me be connected to the earth, to the moon, to all of the other elements that surround us. It keeps me grounded and gives me direction when I need it. And to, I guess, recap on, some of the things that I value, it's obviously knowledge. It is learning constantly. It's being kind. It's calling out terrible, inhumane behaviour. Those are the things that I really want to relish in and give back to people. So if I were to combine all of these things, when I talk about meditation, breath work, being connected to the earth, being connected to the moon and the stars, recognizing that they are all, and we are all interconnected and have an impact and influence on each other. This is what motivates and drives me to get up and be better every day. It's what motivates and drives me to get through the tough times, to see that light at the end of the tunnel, to know that it is just part of a cycle, whether it's a cycle that someone else is going through that I can't control, or a cycle that I am a part of and impacting. These things are what I recognise and take into account when I'm feeling a certain way, such as a low mood. It helps me stay graceful. It helps me hold on to whether it's pain or frustration or anger, and then to release it at the right time in a way that doesn't hurt anybody, that is actually therapeutic for myself. And I want to teach people these things. I want to teach people how to manage this, how to manage their behaviors or their actions, to consider what is mindfulness and to be mindful of how other people live their lives, to understand that we are all unique in our own way, that we all deserve the opportunity to be who we truly are. It's what I'm striving for, and I want to help other people do the same. It's why I am working hard in the background to learn about things that can help me deliver that. So I'm doing breathwork courses, I'm doing meditation courses, I'm doing forest therapy courses, I'm looking at nutrition and herbology, if that's what it's called. I'm just looking at ways that we can look after our environment and move forward at the same time without hurting anybody. And that's my goal. That's what drives me. That is my values. And I have a plan, and at the right time I'll share it with everybody. But I'm excited about it, and I'm actually excited about sharing what I have shared with you guys today. So yeah. I think with that, I'll leave it open. And I would love to hear from you about what I've shared today. And I would love to engage in conversation about it as well. So please reach out. Elemental, E1EMEN7AL. E1EMEN7AL. Yeah, that's annoying. It's elemental at proton.me if you'd like to email, or pretty much look up on any social, elemental, E1EMEN7AL. You can find me. Let's chat. Thanks for hanging out. And until next time, always be kind. Thank you.